East Rutherford, New Jersey, July 19th, 2026, the 106th minute of the World Cup final. 80,000 people inside MetLife Stadium rise to their feet, and for a half second, the loudest tournament in football history goes completely silent. Nico Williams cuts inside. Ferran Torres, a substitute, because this Spain team could beat you with its bench, meets the ball, and the net ripples. Spain are champions of the world. But here's the thing about that stadium. 2 weeks earlier, on that exact patch of grass, Neymar had collapsed in tears as his international career ended. In Dallas, Cristiano Ronaldo had walked off a World Cup pitch for the final time. And now, Lionel Messi stood in the center circle, watching a 19-year-old named Lamine Yamal sprint past him toward the future. One summer, 104 matches, an entire era of football buried, and a brand new one born. The 2026 World Cup was the biggest, loudest, most chaotic tournament ever staged. And somehow, against every prediction, every cynical take, every doomsday column written about a 48-team bloated monster, it might have been the perfect World Cup. But perfect doesn't mean painless, because for every fairy tale this summer wrote, it broke a heart to pay for it. This is the story of how it happened. Let's be honest about where this started. Nobody trusted this tournament. 48 teams, 104 matches, 3 countries, 16 cities, 4 time zones. The purists called it a cash grab. The math said the group stages would be a procession of mismatches. Summer heat in America, they warned, would kill the football. And then the tournament kicked off, and the monster turned out to be magnificent. Nearly 300 goals poured in across the summer, almost 3 per match, obliterating the record set in Qatar. More than 6 million fans packed stadiums across the United States, Mexico, and Canada, the highest attendance in World Cup history. The mismatches never really came. What came instead were the debutantes. Cape Verde, Jordan, Curacao, Uzbekistan, 4 nations walking onto football's biggest stage for the very first time. And one of them was about to hijack the entire tournament. Cape Verde is an island chain off the coast of West Africa. Population: roughly 500,000 people. When they qualified, their squad didn't contain a single player from Europe's top 5 leagues. They were supposed to be the punchline of the expanded format, living proof that 48 teams was too many. Instead, in their opening match, they held Spain, the eventual champions, to a 0-0 draw. It would end up being the only game Spain failed to win all summer. The Blue Sharks then powered on to become the smallest nation ever to reach the World Cup knockout stages. And deep into extra time, against the defending champions Argentina, Cabral hit a long-range strike so absurd, so cinematic, that it instantly entered World Cup folklore. A nation of 500,000 people went toe-to-toe with the champions of the world and made them blink. That was the promise of 2026. Delivered. The tournament everyone feared would dilute the World Cup instead democratized it. While the minnows were dreaming, the giants were dying. Paraguay knocked Germany out on penalties. Another chapter in Germany's decade of World Cup misery. Japan announced themselves by taking points off the Netherlands and Sweden and hammering Tunisia. The hosts had their own agony. The United States, in front of their own fans, crashed out 4-1 to Belgium, Christian Pulisic's big moment never arriving. For all the noise about football finally conquering America, the American team couldn't hold up its end of the deal. But the earthquake, the one that cracked the tournament open, came at MetLife Stadium in the round of 16. Norway 2, Brazil 1. Erling Haaland scored both. The man who had spent years terrorizing club football finally got his World Cup stage, struck down the 5-time champions, and called it the greatest game in Norway's history. Brazil, Carlo Ancelotti's Brazil, were out, their earliest World Cup exit since 1990, and that night cost more than a football match, because in stoppage time, a 34-year-old substitute buried a penalty for Brazil. His 88th international goal, extending his record past Pelé. It was Neymar, and it was his last ever touch in a Brazil shirt. August 2010, a skinny 18-year-old makes his Brazil debut in a friendly against the United States at that very stadium in East Rutherford and scores. 16 years later, on the same ground, the whistle blows, and Neymar collapses to the turf in tears, Vinicius and Rafinha lifting him up as 80,000 people watch a career end. I tried, he said afterward. It started here, I finished here, it's over. The most gifted Brazilian of his generation, the man who outscored Pelé, walks away without the one trophy that defines Brazilian greatness. Football doesn't write scripts, but sometimes it edits them with terrifying precision. Because 2026 wasn't just a tournament, it was a farewell tour for an entire generation, and the tournament showed each legend a very different exit. For Cristiano Ronaldo, it was cruel, 41 years old, still scoring, 3 goals in the group stage, but the legs that once outran everyone finally betrayed him against elite opposition. Portugal flopped, eliminated by Spain in Dallas in the round of 16, and the man who spent 2 decades bending football to his will walked off a World Cup pitch for what is almost certainly the last time. No trophy, no fairy tale, just time doing what time does to everyone. For Lionel Messi, it was almost the perfect ending. At 39, he became the oldest player ever to score a World Cup hat trick, took the all-time World Cup scoring record, and dragged an average Argentina side to a third final with 8 goals and 4 assists. Then Spain starved him of the ball in the final, and his last World Cup ended in silver and tears. Even the greatest resume in football history has one page that ends in defeat. Kylian Mbappé, meanwhile, straddled both worlds, young enough to return, brilliant enough to take scoring honors, and still, sent home before the final, his France beaten, and his farewell note to Didier Deschamps reading like a eulogy for an era he wasn't ready to close. 3 icons, 3 exits, not one of them got the ending they wanted. That's the bitter half of this summer's ledger, and it's exactly what made the sweet half shine. Because while the old kings were leaving, the throne room was being redecorated. Spain didn't lurch through this tournament, they strangled it. Luis de la Fuente's side conceded exactly 1 goal in the entire competition. 1, the fewest ever, by a World Cup winner. Unai Simon kept 7 clean sheets in 8 matches, shattering a record that Buffon, Kahn, and Casillas had only ever shared at 5. Rodri controlled every game he touched and took the golden ball. Pau Cubarsí, 19 years old, defended like a veteran and was named the tournament's best young player, and Lamine Yamal, 19 years and 6 days old on final day, became one of the youngest world champions in history, torturing defenses all summer and setting up the chances that led to the winning goal. Spain's spine for the next decade, Yamal, Cubarsí, and the machine around them, just won a World Cup before some of them can legally drink in the country that hosted the final. This wasn't a triumph, it was an announcement. And the new world wasn't only Spanish. Holland finally has his World Cup legend. Cape Verde has a story its grandchildren will tell. And England. England took their semi-final heartbreak and turned it into fireworks. Bukayo Saka scoring a hat-trick in a delirious 6-4 win over France in the bronze final, sealing the Three Lions' best World Cup finish since they won it in 1966. Even the consolation match this summer felt like a main event. But let's not pretend it was flawless. The halftime show at the final, the first in World Cup history, staged like a Super Bowl spectacle, was widely panned, an American import which the football world didn't ask for. And the ugliest story of the summer wasn't on a pitch at all. On the eve of the USA's match against Belgium, FIFA's disciplinary committee reversed Folarin Balogun's suspension, hours after reports emerged that President Trump had personally called Gianni Infantino about it. FIFA denied any connection, but it was the first in-tournament suspension reversal since 1962, and the optics were brutal. Even a perfect World Cup, it turns out, couldn't fully escape FIFA being FIFA. These weren't footnotes, they were reminders that the game's soul is always one phone call away from compromise. So when people ask whether 2026 really was the perfect World Cup, here's the honest answer. It was perfect, the way real life is perfect. Cape Verde got its miracle, and Brazil got its funeral. Yamal got his coronation, and 3 of the greatest players who ever lived walked off the stage in a single month, none of them on their own terms. A record 6 million people were in the buildings to applaud them out, and nearly 300 goals were scored in between the tiers. The tournament everyone feared would be too big turned out to be exactly big enough to hold every fairy tale and every heartbreak at the same time. Big enough to bury one era and crown another between June and July. The monster was magnificent, the goodbyes were brutal, and football, as always, moved on, because somewhere in Spain, a teenager is already planning what he does next.